In this story, you'll hear about a man whose jealousy led to suspicion, a broken marriage, and ultimately a surprising new beginning behind prison walls. When the internet was invented, almost everyone I knew wanted a computer. A few years ago, we finally joined the computer generation and bought one. At first, it was the newest toy in the house. Deb and my wife used it for email and games, while the kids Kyle and Kayla used it for games and homework. I, on the other hand, used it for pornography and internet searches. I frequently stayed late at work, working the second shift, and leaving the factory at midnight because I didn't want to leave. After all, I was married, so I always went home after work and everyone was already asleep. After a while, the same old routine became monotonous, but I didn't really get addicted like many others did. Instead, I went to story websites and read stories about everything imaginable, and I couldn't believe most of what I read. Do people actually do these things, or are they just fantasies? I was hooked by the stories of cheating wives. These women were cheating on their husbands. It's difficult to believe, but it suggested. Now that I was kind of observing my wife's behavior, I would tell her that she danced too close or was friendly to other men when we went on dates, and we even got into arguments about it. I knew she was a pretty woman, but I had no reason to doubt her, so I found myself looking through our emails or the cloth hamper, thinking of ridiculous things that came to mind after reading these stories. I started reading less and less, but many thoughts persisted. I recall reading about men who caught their wives with other men and stood. When I saw them, I had to ask myself, does it really turn you on when you catch your spouse with another man? I kept thinking about it, but because I was jealous, I didn't think it could turn me on. I told Deb about my thoughts, and she asked me why I was thinking these things, saying that she didn't want any other men but me. We first met when we were in our 20s, dancing at her sister's wedding and becoming close friends. She then told me that she worked as a school teacher, and I told her what factory I worked in. Deb's sister Sandy was a wild girl I met in high school. We didn't date, but she was a real one. I guess I shouldn't say that, or I'll be viewed as a real one too. She had sex with almost everyone as far as I know, including almost every guy on our soccer team. I took part in a threesome after a game that she was involved in without anyone forcing her to, and she did it more than once. She and one of her friends were with her. I knew her husband Bob from work. He was one of the day shift supervisors and had since been transferred to another plant. He was just as wild as Sandy, and he was the one who invited me to their wedding. I didn't like Bob much because I knew what kind of man he was, and I detested him even more when I discovered that he was attempting to approach Deb after our wedding. She told me that she thought he was just being courteous because he was our brother-in-law, but I knew better, so I warned her that if he tried to we agreed to never discuss our past relationships because we were both fairly jealous people. I didn't want to go on a date one day and run into the guy she had mentioned having sex with. And I also didn't want to tell her that I had slept with her sister when Kyle was 8 and Kayla was 6. They were both in school, and Deb and I got along fairly well aside from our arguments. I would kick his ass if she did anything to me. It wasn't the ideal situation for a marriage because I worked different shifts and she was alone with the kids at night. However, one day as I was getting ready for work, Deb asked me if I could come over to her sister's house and fix the plumbing because her kitchen sink was leaking and Bob wasn't much of a handyman. I laughed when she said plumbing, and she quickly replied, "The plumbing is at the sink, not my sister's. If you ever try to fix it, you'll regret red." She kissed me before I went inside and took the kids to school. But I couldn't help but think about Sandy, because based on what Bob had told me, I knew they were probably swingers and didn't have children, because Sandy always claimed it would ruin her figure. She didn't have a bad figure, but she wasn't any better than Deb, and Deb had 2 kids. Sandy was constantly trying to hit on me, so I tried my best to just joke around with her. She didn't look bad, but she wasn't worth losing your marriage over, I recall her saying. Sandy, a part-time cashier at a nearby grocery store, knew I was coming to fix the plumbing on her day off. When I got there, she was wearing a sexy bathrobe and offered me a cup of coffee. After a few minutes of conversation, she showed me the sink, and I discovered it was simply clogged. Her husband could probably fix it, but he probably didn't even try. I laid on my back with my head under the cabinet and replaced the siphon because she had put too many. They clogged the drain and poured eggshells and potato peels down the garbage disposal. As I was reassembling everything, she got up and leaned on me. "What are you doing, Sandy? Stop it, Sandy. I'm trying to finish this job." She took a moment to step back, and when I finished assembling the pipes, Sandy asked, "Are you going to sleep with me?" I said, "No, Sandy. Deb is your sister and I love her. I won't cheat, especially not with her sister." "Do you remember how high school was? Good to sleep with me now, Sandy. I love Deb, but she doesn't know about our past together unless you tell her that you're a beautiful woman. If you tell her that you're a beautiful woman, or if I tell Deb that you did it anyway, she'll believe me because I'm her sister. Why did you do this hurt us? Deb is your sister and loves you." Sandy laughed. "My little prude thinks she's a... Let's see how she reacts when I tell her about it." I knew she would understand, so I got my tools and told her I was done with the damn sink. I then got in my truck and drove to work, my mind racing with the possibility that Sandy would make up a story and lie to Deb when she got there. I called Deb, but she wasn't home yet, and I left a message saying, "Deb, I love you and I have something to tell about your sister." When I got home tonight, I started working in down business, and it was difficult to focus because I had a lot on my mind. When I called home again, no one picked up. I called Deb's mother and asked her if she knew where Deb was. She left with Andy and Bob, and the kids stayed with me. Deb asked if I could watch them for a few hours while they were gone, so I said I'd leave them overnight. I like having them here. Is something wrong, Rye? No. It's okay if you see her, tell her I love her, and I'll see her tonight. I have to return to work for myself. It was one of the longest nights of my life. I knew I had to tell Deb about me and her sister Hel before I even met Deb. I'm sure she would. I finally realized that my day was over, so I went home. As I pulled up in front of the house, I noticed a car parked in the driveway. I knew it was San's car, so I went to open the door, but it was locked. I took out the key, and to my amazement, I saw my wife Bob and Sandy sitting in the living room, Sandy holding Deb's hand, Bob pulling up his pants, and my lovely wife lying on the couch. Everyone flinched when I opened the door, and there was a smirk on Bob's face and a smile on Sai's. I was so angry that I ran up to Bob and hit him as hard as I could, knocking him to the ground behind me. I heard screaming, but I couldn't tell if it was Deb or Sandy. I hit Bob probably 5 times before I felt a blow to the back of my head when I woke up in the hospital. I looked back and saw a man in uniform. It must have been a city policeman. "I'm glad you're back in the world." My wife Debbie looked half scared and intoxicated. I don't know about the guys and stories I read, but I didn't have a boner like seeing my wife in that position. I am Patrolman G. Andrews. Where am I and is my wife? What happened to me? Slow down, Mr. Harper. You were hit in the head with a glass vase and suffered a concussion. The police were called after a fight broke out in your house and they were going to charge you with assault, but they dropped the charges. You are very fortunate because you could have spent an entire 18 months in jail. What about the attack on me? You claim that someone hit me in the head and witnesses said that you came home and began fighting with your brother-in-law to get him to stop his wife. Hit you on the head only once, and that was to break up the fight. You should be grateful that they dropped the charges against you. Where was my wife when you arrived? She was throwing up when we got there, and your sister-in-law said she had consumed too much alcohol. So you became irate with her. When you went to confront your son-in-law, he stopped you and began fighting with him, defending himself. When we spoke with your wife, she said she didn't remember much other than that. You were yelling at her. I wasn't going to tell the world that I caught my wife in bed with another man, so I just lay there and didn't say anything. All right, have it your way, according to the doctor. You will have to stay here until tomorrow. I suggest you consider what you did and thank God that no charges have been filed. You are a very lucky man, Mr. Harper. My supervisor called when you weren't home yet and told me to wait and get your statement. As I was waiting for Amy, my sister, to arrive, the phone rang, and it was Deb. Do you want me to come and get you? We need to talk now that we're even together. What the hell are you talking about? You slept with Bob and you're saying that we're even getting Amy to come get me. I just want to pick up a few of my things. I had a terrible headache and didn't know I could live with a cheating wife, but I had to know why she was doing this. Deb responded, I'm not going to talk about it over the phone. Amy and I will come get my stuff and we'll talk. I hung up the phone and waited for Amy, who arrived a short while later. We drove toward my house, and I asked her to wait in the car because I knew she liked Deb and I didn't want her to be in the middle of anything. I knocked on the door and Deb opened it. I asked where the kids were, and she replied that they were still at her mom's. I went over to S's house and fixed her plumbing, and she started hitting on me. I told her no, but she insisted on having sex with me in spite of the fact that she didn't. I don't believe you, you're lying. Why would my sister lie to me? She's jealous of our marriage and wants to see if she can keep us apart. First, did you receive my message? Yes, and Sandy told me how you forced her to have sex. How could you do that? She sobbed quietly. I didn't do anything like that. Sandy knew you weren't circumcised and that you had a mole on your upper thigh. And she knew that because I slept with her in high school like every other guy, so I never told you. She seems to have succeeded, so why do you think she sat back and let Bob have sex with you? They are swingers and wanted to get you into it. It looks like they both got what they wanted. You let Bob have sex with you and our marriage died. No, that's not true. You said that we would never discuss our previous relationship, so I decided to put it all behind me. I'm not sure what to think, but Sandy is my sister, and I'm your husband. You didn't even wait to call or ask me about it. Instead, you let Bob handle it. I think that if I had raped your sister, you must have wanted Bob badly enough to let them talk you into it, but Sandy said, I don't care what your wayward sister said. This isn't just about Bob and you can believe whoever you want. But this marriage is over, so why would you want to live with a rapist? No, you wanted Bob and you used me as an excuse. I love you, but you better look up the definition of love because it doesn't include having sex with other men. If I raped her, why didn't she call the police? She claimed she didn't want to hurt me with a family scandal. I'll go to the lawyer first thing Monday and begin the divorce paperwork while you're away. Ray, this isn't how it was supposed to go. Sandy said she would forgive me and forgave you, but I just wanted to get even with you. No, you just had sex with Bob and your sister. I went and got my suitcase and put some personal belongings in it. What should I tell the kids? Tell them whatever they want. I don't care. I don't want to see you anymore. I'll get a lawyer to set up visits, and I told Amy everything, and she knew I was telling the truth. I knew she would help watch Deb and the kids. Weeks passed, and it was really difficult for me. I worked overtime because I had more bills to pay, found a cheap guest house that I rented by the week, ate mostly at bars and corner diner, and met with a lawyer. Amy can take the kids so I see them. I don't ever want to talk you again. I opened the door and stepped out. Amy drove me to a cheap motel until I could find another place. I just asked for our marriage to be dissolved because I had no proof, and he told me that Debbie didn't want it but would agree to anything I wanted. Everything was essentially split 50-50. We rented a house and she took over the payments. Our savings were divided in half and she had to give me half of the value of our belongings. I had to pay child support, which didn't bother me at all because I love my kids and miss them a lot. The only issue was that I missed Debbie too, but I knew it was over between us. I attended every school function I could so would not interfere with work. I attended both of our children's birthdays as long as I wasn't required to be around Debbie's family. I had courteous conversations with Deb, but whenever she wanted to discuss us, I left to see my kids every weekend and sometimes during the week, depending on my work schedule. Deb likely called me nearly every day until the divorce if she wanted to discuss the kids or housework, and I listened. On one occasion, though, she wanted to discuss us, so I hung up. The thing that hurt the most was when I was at home one afternoon and the phone rang. It was the school, and they told me that Kyle wasn't feeling well. They asked if I could pick him up, so I went to do so. I told Amy that Sandy was still sticking to her story about me forcing her to have sex, and she told me that Deb was torn between what Sandy said and what I tried to explain to her, that I had no proof, and neither did Sandy. It was just my word against hers, and Debbie believed her. When I called Debbie, who teaches middle school, to let her know I was picking up Kyle, she said she would be home as soon as possible. I took Kyle home, put him on the bed, and took his temperature. He had a slight fever, but nothing serious. An hour later, Deb arrived home with Kyle, and she hurried inside to check on him. I didn't want to answer the phone, but I did out of habit, and it was Sandy. "What are you doing there?" she asked. "Well, if it isn't a liar Kyle was, then I Brought him home because he was ill, but don't worry. You destroyed the marriage. I reached down and pressed the record button on the answering machine, which recorded both sides of the conversation. Look, Ray, this just got out of control. You knew that Bob wanted a taste of my little sister, and if you had sex with me like I asked, it wouldn't have gotten out of control. However, you came home and began fighting, telling Deb that I had raped you, and then made Bob rape Deb. What kind of a jerk of a sister are you? Bob never raped her. She gave herself to him voluntarily, and if he did, she would probably do it again. The problem is that you can't prove it. I told you from the start that she would believe me over you, and now you know that if you need to get laid, call me and tell Deb to call me later. I hope my nephew is feeling better. She hung up, and I switched off the recorder. Debbie asked, who had called? And I told her that your amazing angel is a sister who will never lie to you. What did she want? I recorded her message and she said, call her back. I guess we can call it a day of freedom and I'll see you in court on Thursday. Don't forget to listen to the message, I said as I was heading to my truck. After about 5 minutes, my cell phone began to ring repeatedly. It must have done so 10 times before I reached home. When I finally picked it up, Ray, I apologized deeply and asked for your forgiveness. I took 2 days off work on Thursday to go to my attorney's office and sign the divorce petition I wanted. Sandy told me the truth about not being raped, which is good to hear, but it doesn't change anything in my mind. You slept with Bob and didn't even give me a chance to explain after I told you the truth. You still chose your sister's story, believing I was a rapist. I want to tell you one thing I loved and probably always will, but I also hate you for what you did to our family and for the mistrust you harbored for me. I was really depressed when I went to the local bar before Deb got there. I had already started to set up my drinks when I noticed Bob enter. He didn't notice me, so I walked up to him and gave him a cold punch. When he fell, I hit him repeatedly, got up and began kicking him until he was a mass on the floor. I leaned over to kick him again, but 3 guys pulled me away from him. I remember saying, I hope you die in hell, and I continued to kick him until I was dragged away from him. The police officers threw me. I was handcuffed and taken to the patrol car this time. I was given permission to make 1 phone call, so I called my sister Amy. I told her what I had done, that she didn't have to post bail because it would be too costly, and that I would serve my time. She sobbed when I hung up. Debbie came to visit me at the prison, but I refused to let her. It took nearly 2 months for my case to go to court. I was charged with assault, and I pleaded guilty. I was given 2 years minus time served. I asked Amy to take my married man. I went to prison, and it's not a place you want to live. It was like a different world, and I got into fights all the time. She told me that Debbie was feeling very ill and wanted to see me. I told her that I didn't want to see Deb because she really loves you, and her family is furious about what Sandy said about you. Additionally, you should know that Debbie never showed up to sign the divorce decree, so you're going to jail. According to the documents, Keeler stabbed them both about 80 times. He was difficult to identify the year before he had killed another inmate after he began fighting with him. I tried to stay as long as I could, but the other inmates kept questioning me. In the first 2 months, I was taken to the infirmary twice due to cuts and fights. My cellmate was a life inmate named Killer. I believe he came home one day and saw his wife having fun with another man and destroyed them both. I must have paid my tribute almost every day because after that I wasn't bothered as much. What's more, the killer even started talking to me. On Visitor's Day, I went to see my visitor. I thought it would be my father or Amy, but it was Debbie. I asked her, what are you doing here? She looked so lovely and kind that I wanted to give her a hug, but I was playing Angry Ray. I brought you some pictures from the kids and they really miss you. I brought you some pictures from the kids and I saw tears streaming down her face. I didn't sign the divorce papers because I knew I made a terrible mistake. But I know we can work things out if you still love me. I didn't know what to say because I still felt the same way about her. But I also hated what she had done and the fact that she didn't believe me. I got up and walked back to my cell, leaving her by the window and not looking at her. Life now just takes care of my kids and tell them I love them. She handed me some baby pictures, and they were their last school photos, and they looked adorable. I was working in the kitchen when I heard a guy talking about how he was going to try to corner the killer in the dining room, after he killed his friend. Since there was no one I could tell about it without being a snitch, I decided to tell the killer because doing so would make me a member of his group. I didn't want to be a part of any group, but I couldn't let this man die. The killer wasn't sure if he believed me, so I told him what he wanted to believe. I didn't say anything to the guards, but to him, I suppose I was taking a chance. He said, "You can tell a lot about a person by looking into their eyes." I told him to avoid him the following day because I couldn't believe what he had done. He had hidden 2 thin hardcover books under his shirt, covering his kidneys, and 3 of his group were seated at another table. When the prisoner approached him from behind and straddled Keeler's chest, he stabbed him in the kidneys, but naturally the book knives were pretty. They pierced the prisoner's skin, but they didn't read the book. Killer's friends then grabbed him and began beating him until the guards arrived at the table. The prisoner was placed in solitary confinement, and Keeler sat down to finish his dinner. I can't believe he stayed composed throughout the entire ordeal. After that day, Keeler spoke to me fairly frequently, but when we spoke in the cell, he was a totally different person than when we were outside the cell. Everybody knew he was the leader. Of his group, he asked me about Debbie and the kids. He told me that she had 3 grown kids, but they never visited him because he had killed their mother. He said that his youngest daughter, Angie, was with him. She knew her mother was the root of the family issues and wrote to him frequently, but he didn't allow her to visit because he didn't want other prisoners to see her and put her in danger. I could tell he loved his daughter, and he smiled when he told me she was a lawyer. I told him my entire pitiful story. If there were a woman in the world who loved me and said she would wait for me, I would be the happiest man in the world. But what about mistrusting me, not trusting me, and having sex with another man? I killed a man and your wife for the same thing, and I regret it every day. This is the story of how Sandy set me up and also set Debbie up. Keeler asked me, "Yes, I think so, but I also hate what she did to our family. Does she still love you?" Every day of my life I regret not giving her another chance and getting my family back. Don't get me wrong, Ray, don't hold a grudge, it will kill you slowly. He gave me something to think about, is he right? What would I do if I got out? I had no job, no future, and right now, family. The following month I had another visitor, Debbie, who smiled at me with tears in her eyes. The kids drew you some more pictures, which she placed in the tray, and I looked at them. I saw a picture of my mom and dad and the 2 kids, I suppose still. I'm sorry for not believing you. I thought she didn't believe me once. The next time someone says something, she'll probably believe them again instead of me, Deb. I've been thinking a lot that I want to forgive you, but don't know if I can because I can't get it out of my head. Did you really like him? No. I hated it. They miss you, Ray God. I miss you. Will you ever be able to forgive me? Can we be a family again? I'll do whatever it takes. I don't talk to Sandy or Bob anymore because of what she did to us. I threw up when you walked in, saw the look on your face, and realized that what I had done was wrong when I saw you. Of course, I couldn't take it all back, God. I wish I hadn't been so inebriated. A few weeks later, I had another visitor, Amy, who came to see me. Ray, you may recall that I told you that Deb had stopped seeing Sandy. I was driving by the house when I noticed Sandy and Bob entering. I'm not sure why they were there, so I kept driving. I just thought you should know that I was confused again. Had Deb lied to me again? I was prepared to forgive her and try to make our lives work again. I knew Amy wouldn't lie to me. About a month later, I found out why Deb was seeing Susan and Bob again. The killer and I started talking, and he said he felt he owed me for what I had done for him. He claimed to have been a lawyer before going to prison and to have some connections, and he was going to see if he could get me out of the parole program. I wasn't sure whether to believe him, but he never lied to me. A few weeks later, I was called to the warden's office where the parole board was meeting. The first person to speak was the prison governor, Mr. Harper. We have a parole application for you. I'm not sure who you're familiar with, but we've been asked to speak with you after reviewing it. It seems odd to say that about a criminal, but I valued the killer. I often considered what a good lawyer he must have been. His stature and speech demanded respect. I knew it was best to take him at his word. I noticed in your file that you struggled to adjust for the first few months. I guess I wasn't cut out for prison life, but I tried to adjust. If you had been released sooner, where would you have lived? And how did you manage to survive? I had to think quickly because I knew this was a make-or-break question. Well, sir, I have a sister who is also my best friend, and she and her husband said that when I get released, I can live with them until I get back on my feet. Aren't you married, Mr. Harper? Yes, sir, but we were divorcing when I was sentenced. At this point, I'm not sure how things will work out with him. I'm just trying to be honest with you, and we appreciate your honesty. We knew that we had broken up, and we wanted to see how honest you were with us, sir. As for the job, my former employer said that I was a good worker, and to come him when I was released, what are your chances of going back to prison? We don't look our best when a convict we released early returns to prison. I swear to you, sir, that I will never want to see those prison walls again. Return to your cell, Mr. Harper, and we'll speak with you at the end of the month, sir, and I appreciate you at least considering me for parole. I returned to the cell when Keeler inquired about my progress. I told him what I had told the council, and I asked him if he had anything to do with it. He laughed, and a few days later he said, "Someone from the parole board was in the house. Are you going to be paroled?" She asked what they wanted me to say. I told them we broke up, but I'd love to have you back. She said, "How are we settling in, and will you be able to live there?" Rather nervously, I changed the topic, and you told me you stopped seeing Sandy, but you've been seeing her. She's my sister, and I don't see her very often. I interrupted her. "And Bob, have you seen him recently? Why are you asking me these questions?" She looked untrustworthy and said you wouldn't see Sandy, but she and Bob were in the house. Did something happen between you and Bob yet? Tell your fucking lover, Bob, that I'll finish work when I get out, and if you're having fun with him in the interim, I'll take care of you too. Deb jumped up and ran out of the visitor room. I knew my thoughts were correct, and I was prepared to return to the same fucking situation that had brought me here in the first place. I didn't intend to kill anyone, I just wanted to give them a good scare. I called my sister Amy, who came over to visit me, and I told her about the conversation with Deb. She said she felt very sorry for me. Said that when the parole board visited her, she told them that I could stay here for as long as I needed to. Her husband, Kenny, was present, and he said that I was welcome there. Do you know if they called Mr. Parker regarding my job? Yes, that's correct, and he said that you could return to your previous job because you were one of the best workers. Gosh, Amy, you've given me hope. I hope I don't get rejected. They told me that since you have a job and a place to live, you'll probably be released on the 1st of the month. Amy started crying. Amy was correct. I received a call stating that I would be released. I was told that the law firm was the one who arranged my release. They were supposed to meet with me, fill out my forms, explain the parole situation, and then send me to a parole officer. I thanked the killer, and he reminded me about the cigarettes. I told him they were coming, honestly. But I don't know if he had anything to do with my parole. Next week, I was given the name of the lawyer who would be handling my case. I was to report the agency as soon as I was released. I didn't understand why I had to meet with an attorney rather than a parole officer. Was worth a box of cigarettes a week just to be free. When I walked out the gate, my sister Amy was crying, so I gave her a hug and a brotherly kiss. I knew I was welcome when I entered Amy's house, and her husband welcomed me. Naturally, I asked about Debbie, and Amy informed me that she had gotten in touch with a lawyer and signed the paperwork to end the marriage. It appears my suspicions about Deb were right, but I was now free. I tried to explain to Deb that I wasn't coming over to cause trouble, we could even talk on the porch, and that I just wanted to make arrangements to see the kids on a regular basis. She agreed to see me, but threatened to call the police if I started making a scene. When I pulled up to the house, my kids ran up to me screaming, Daddy, Daddy, you're back." I grabbed them. I knew I had to go to Deb's house and make an appointment to see the kids, so I called to make sure she was home to avoid any big surprises or getting back in jail. I talked to them for a few minutes and told them to ride their bikes. My mom and I would sit on the porch and watch them. "What do you want, Rye? You've made it clear that we won't be a family again. We're moving on with our lives. Debbie, these are also my children, and I want them to be a part of my life. I was prepared to forgive you, but you lied to me once more. You simply had to return to Bob and Sandy because I know the kind of people they are and the people they interact with. I was lonely while you were in prison. Don't play with my head. I know you slept together. I don't care who you're having fun with. If you haven't already shoved goddamn Bob up your ass, I'm here to tell you that if I discover that my kids are living this perverted lifestyle, I will stop at nothing to take them away from you. My kids are very important to me, and I want them to live happy lives. I would never do anything to harm my kids, and you destroyed our family because of damned Bob. I'm going to make sure my kids stay. I've changed and I don't trust you anymore. I'll see my new lawyer tomorrow to find out my rights. You showed me your true colors, and I left you. However, we have 2 kids, and I'll make sure they grow up in a good environment. I promise you, Rye, that you won't fall into that lifestyle. Yes, I've tried it, I admit, but it's not for me or my kids. Remember that actions speak louder than words. My kids came over and I spoke to them about school and what they were. The following morning, I went to the law firm that represented me. It felt weird to go there because I hadn't even spoken to the lawyer who had obtained my parole. I went to the receptionist and took out the card I had been given by the parole board, asking if I could speak to Mr. A.J. Brady. I'm Ray Harper, and the receptionist smiled at me and said, I have an appointment. I told them that I was living with Aunt Amy's, but that I would soon find an apartment closer so that I could spend more time with them. We'll see you soon. Please have a seat, Mr. Harper. I asked myself if she said Miss Brady because the card said AJ, so I thought it was a man. I was sitting there thinking when a stunning woman in a dark blue suit approached me. She had shoulder-length dark brunette hair, a smile, and dimples. I couldn't help but stare at her as she extended her hand to greet me, Ray Harper. I assume she said, I'm AJ Brady. I know we haven't met yet, but I've been asked to look into I've decided that you didn't have a good defense, and we'll discuss the rest if you please come into my office, Mary. I don't want to be bothered, so please answer all calls and tell them I'll call them back. Yes, Miss Brady, the receptionist said. I followed her into the office. If she had asked me to, I would have followed her into the abyss. Well, Mr. Harper, we finally met. If it's okay with you, call me Ray. I owe you my life, Mr. Harper, and I have no idea why you did it. You had a lot of extenuating circumstances that the lawyer never mentioned. You had just signed the divorce papers, and the person who caused your divorce visited your home when you were not in your right mind. These and other factors would have gotten you a lesser sentence. Of course, you committed assault, but the sentence was too harsh. I brought this up to the parole board, and they somewhat agreed with me. A good friend of mine asked me to look into your case. As for my name, I suppose you can call me AJ. I became friends with a man in prison who they called Killer, and he told me that he would help me get parole. He also mentioned that he had a favorite daughter named Angie, who was a lawyer. I wondered if you were the gorgeous daughter he was referring to. I asked why Miss Brady me. Who asked you to help me, and can I call you anything other than Miss Brady after all? I feel like you saved my life and gave it back to me. My new lawyer's eyes glistened as she looked at me and said, Keeler. I mean, Dave. My father's name is Dave, and he asked me to handle your case. He's never asked me to do that before, so I must have really liked you. I was surprised when he asked, but for the sake of my father, I'd do anything. AJ, can I call you Angie? We just met, and you're my lawyer, but you're too attractive for me to call you AJ, and I most definitely don't want to call you Miss Brady. What does that even mean? Angelina Jew Brady is my name. Now you understand why I chose AJ. Listen, Ray, a few things we need to talk about. Would you like to have lunch with me? I asked Ray. I don't meet with clients. It's not a date lunch. I have to go work in a couple of hours and I need to eat. If you don't want to call it a date, you can pay for it and call a business meeting. Angie smiled, and her face broke, out in big dimples. No wonder Daddy liked you, she said. I take clients to lunch and eat. I watched Mary get up, and she was a very nice-looking woman. She told me about meeting my parole officer, who she said was a pretty decent person, but that I would have to follow the rules and stay out of trouble. I was to meet with him twice a month for a few months and then once a month for the rest of the year. Angie, you know everything about me. Will you tell me something about yourself, Rye? I don't think it would be appropriate to talk to you about my personal life. I told you not to date clients, but thanks for the compliments. She couldn't help but blush and tell me about your legal education because it's a business. I have the right to know that as a client, She tried to hide a smile. "All right, Ray, I have a law degree that I received from the university on a scholarship. I've been an attorney for a number of years, and my specialty is criminal law." Lunch came and we ate, and I couldn't help but think about Angie. I noticed that she softened a little, but this lunch is just to discuss business, so she couldn't help but smile. After lunch, we returned to the office, and when she held out her hand to say goodbye, I held it in both of my hands for a few seconds, wondering what she was thinking and hoping she didn't think I was some sort of freak. "Will I see you again, Angie? You'll actually have to come back next week to fill out the paperwork you get from your parole officer. Why don't we have lunch together? I'll even buy you a treat." And I informed her that I was already looking forward to lunch next week. Her secretary gave me a quick glance and grinned, saying, "I guess clients don't see their attorneys that often." But then again, most attorneys weren't like Angie. I returned to work and everything went really well. I finished my work in no time at all. I suppose it's like riding a bike. You just get on and start riding, and the majority of the guys I used to work with were still there. It was as if they had a newfound respect for me, and no one was bothering me. The following 2 Mondays in a row, I had an appointment with Angie. She was attempting to keep up a business relationship, but I wanted to know more about her. On the 4th week of our correspondence, she informed me that we had broken up. "Are you still my lawyer?" I asked. "Of course, if you have any problems, all you have to do is call me." She said, "Angie, I'm afraid I have to fire you, and I'm very sorry what fire me in God's name has gotten into you that I helped you get out of jail and didn't charge you with anything, and you want to fire me? I'm an ex-con and a factory worker, but I want to get to know you better. I think you do too, because for the past 3 weeks I could have been calling to get the information you requested. I think you want to see me too, Rye." "I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. Yes, I'm a little attracted to you, but this is all about EXC convicts and laborers, isn't it? You don't think we should be together? I know I just got out of jail and I've been locked up for a while, but I want to give it a chance. Oh God, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'll go once tell you right now, don't try to get me to sleep with you. This isn't it at all. You're my client. I'm your lawyer. What will people think? What does it matter? Just come with me once. If you don't like it, you'll know not to go again after following your heart." I didn't want to drive Angie in my old truck, so I borrowed a car from my sister. She gave me the address, which was a townhouse. When she answered, I saw the most beautiful woman. I know that men have different perspectives on women, but she looked so beautiful that I wanted to grab her and give her a hug right away. I knew that she had to be a gentleman, but it wasn't easy. We went to a fancy restaurant and ordered wine and dinner after we decided to chat for a while listening to music. "Angie, tell me about yourself. Since your last name differs from your father's, you must have been married growing up. Tell me about yourself." "My life is like a book, Rye. My dad and mom didn't get along, and you know how that ended. Dad has been in prison for 14 years now, and my brother and sister and I were raised by aunts and uncles. I'm the youngest, and I was 14 when all of this happened. It was really difficult for us all, and my brother and sister have never forgiven my father, even though they love him. They know that my mom cheated on him. I told him about it, and I argued with my mom, but she said I was just a child and didn't understand what I was talking about. She also said that I would learn a lot about life someday. 2 weeks later, my dad caught her with another man, and I partially blamed myself because if I hadn't said anything, this might not have happened. Angie, you don't realize that you're not accountable for your dad's incarceration or your mom's death. They were adults, and you were a child attempting to act morally. Would attend college and attempt to become a lawyer in the hopes of helping my father receive a lighter sentence, which is why I chose criminal law. Of course, there wasn't much leeway in my father's case. He was an accomplished lawyer who told me he was proud of me, but there wasn't much I could do to assist him. I asked Angie, "Have you been married before, or is it none of your business?" She smiled at me and said, "Ray, can we talk about this some other time? I don't want to. Ray, you should know that I don't go on dates very often because of the people I socialize with, and I have a pretty big mistrust of men. I'm just trying to be honest with you though, because if my dad hadn't sent you to me, I probably wouldn't be here. I'm having a good time with you and I'd like to dance. I'm a little awkward, but this will give me an opportunity to hug you." We got up and I had the band play a few slow songs in succession. I took Angie in my arms and we twirled into a dance. I held her close to me and breathed in the scent of her hair. When I took her home that night, I kissed her at the door, and she just stared at me before leaning forward and kissing me again. "Can I come in, Angie?" "No, Ray, not today. Maybe next Saturday, call me Thursday." I came home to a very happy man. We met the next Saturday, and one day, "Today I'll send your father an extra pack of cigarettes. Angie, you're the nicest thing that's ever come my way. I'll do anything to earn your trust. I'm not cut out for this, as I've already told you." After that, she gave me more information about herself. "Rai, I want you to know more about me if we're going to continue dating. My boyfriend and I decided we loved each other during my freshman year of college, and naturally we made love. I became pregnant, and we decided to get married. We went to a justice of the peace, and he married us. But we soon realized our marriage had failed because we were too young. My husband and I had a miscarriage. I was thrilled when she finally confided in me and asked about my kids. I told her that I had told them about her, and my daughter kept asking to meet her. I mentioned that I had told them about her, and would you like to meet my sister and my 2 kids? We're having a family barbecue next Saturday, and you're invited. I kept the last name Brady because my father said I had to do it to distance myself from his last name Miller. Of course, that was my maiden name. Huge step for us if she agreed to come meet my family. She looked everywhere, but when she saw that this was a big step, she took a deep breath, looked into my eyes, and then leaned forward to kiss me. It was the first time she had ever done that, and she pulled away. "All right, Ray, count me in." I had no idea what women did at parties like this, so I told her that I would ask Amy to call her when I told Amy about Angie visiting the family. Angie said she would make potato salad, and I remember Amy telling me how sweet her voice sounded when she called her. I think she was hoping something would happen between us. I knew it was stopping by Deb's house every weekend to pick up my kids, so I would drop them off at Amy's, or we would go somewhere they were fun to be with. The number of family members who were going to attend the party increased because they all wanted to meet the new woman in my life. My mom and dad also showed up. Concerning their mother, but always trying to be courteous, Kyle informed me that their mother was seeing someone. This initially worried me, but Kayla later revealed that it was a school teacher named Pat. He was the soccer coach and taught health classes. When I asked Deb about him, she said, "I told you I was trying to turn my life around. Pat is a good guy. His wife passed away from leukemia 2 years ago, so he moved here to start over. He has a daughter who is 15 years old, and Kyle and Kayla like her. I want to tell you something, Deb. You are dishonest and cheating. I hope everything works out for us. I hope I haven't ruined it for you and all the women. You're a good man, Ryan. I know you'll find the right woman. I'm just sorry I caused you so much pain." I said goodbye and drove home. I found a small apartment about a mile from the house where Deb and the kids live. Pat loves our children and treats them well. He knows about you and realizes that you are their father. To give the kids a place to stay when they were with me, I found a 2-bedroom apartment. I still visit Amy a few times a week, usually for food, but I also enjoy seeing them. On the day of the barbecue, I was nervous and stood outside waiting for Angie to arrive. I was so relieved when her car pulled up, and she smiled at me and held out a bowl of potato salad, saying, "You better eat some." She looked gorgeous, and I don't think she could look bad in my eyes. I introduced her to everyone as my good friend, and when I introduced her to Mom and Dad, she smiled and hugged them both. Dad said, "Don't miss Ray," right in front of her, and we don't even know her. Angie looked at me and grinned, which I took as positive feedback. When I introduced her to Amy, they both looked at me. "Ray, I never told you, but I met your sister during the interview. I told you that I would never lie to you, so I didn't tell anyone about your parole because I thought we would become friends." Amy and I hadn't spoken since parole until she called me about the potato salad. "Is there anyone else you've spoken to that I should know about?" "Yes, Deb, your ex-wife Sue, and of course Bob. I also spoke to your boss at work to make sure you would have a job with the people who saw the bar fight and the police who made the arrest. I apologize for not telling you about all of this, but your attorney never thought I would fall in love with you after all. We had never met. You were my client, and I needed to know the truth before I could be behind you. If you want me to leave, just let me know and I'll go. You just said you were in love with me, and that's all I heard." I grabbed her, kissed her, hugged her, and introduced the rest of the family. I told Angie I'd be back in a few minutes because I had to pick up. When I returned, Kayla came over and introduced herself to Angie. "Hello, I'm Kayla. Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "You're really pretty," Kayla said. "You can call me Angie or AJ. You're a very pretty girl. Come meet my older brother, who is 10 years old and terrified of girls. This is AJ, Daddy's friend." I saw Kyle shaking Angie's hand. I could tell by the way 3 of them were speaking that they... At the end of the evening, I was talking to Angie when Kyle and Kayla approached us. "Dad, you mentioned that we were going to the amusement park in 2 weeks, and if Angie could accompany us, you'd have someone to talk to when Kayla and I rode the rides." I tried to explain to Kyle that questions like should be asked. We're going to become friends. I walked over and joined them. "We like her, Daddy. She's so pretty and sweet," Kyle told me, who wasn't known for being tired again. Angie just smiled. He looked at Angie and said, "Sorry, Angie. I didn't realize you didn't like amusement parks." Angie began to laugh, so she knelt down and told Kyle, "What your daddy means is that you should ask him those kinds of questions in private, not me. As for amusement parks, I love them and would love to go there. If it's okay with your daddy, perhaps you and I could ride the roller coaster together." Needless to say, we all went to the amusement park. On the way home, Kayla told me, "Dad, you have to buy a car instead of your truck. You can't expect Angie to use her car all the time because we all won't fit in your truck." Angie and I laughed, but the girl was right. Over the next couple CLE weeks, I didn't see Angie much because I had to work a couple weekends and she was busy in court. We spoke on the phone a couple of times. Also, the kids rode everything they could get their hands on. It wasn't the same Saturday, though, when I picked up the kids and we went to Chuck E. Cheese's, a kid-friendly pizza place with a variety of games where you could win tokens and small prizes. We had already arrived at the house when Kayla asked if she could call Angie and invite her to join us. I didn't want to let her down, so I said I would call Angie. I called out, "It's Rai. Kayla asked me to call you tonight." "Oh, Ray, I was going out with some friends." "Nothing, have fun, Rai. You mentioned that Kayla wanted to ask me something, so please put her on the phone." "It's okay, Angie. I could only hear half of the conversation." "Hey, Angie, Dad is taking Kyle and me to Chuck E. Cheese's for pizza and games, and we were wondering if you'd like to go." "Okay, I'll let him know that we miss you too. Goodbye." I felt bad for Kayla, but she already had plans. "What do you mean, Dad?" She said she would be here in 30 minutes. Provided by the warden, Brad and Lisa approached their father and gave him a hug. It was the first time they had spoken to him in nearly 15 years, and there were many tears of happiness and regret. They knew their father was dying, and they wanted him to know that they still loved him. Amy took as many photos of Angie and me as she could of Dave with his 3 kids, capturing their hugs, tears, and even a little laughter during the brief time they spent together before she left. When we left, we noticed that Brad and Lisa were still talking to their father. It was a beautiful sight to see. We headed back into town for the reception, where everyone we invited was there. The first people we saw were Kyle and Kayla, who were jumping up and down when we got out of the car. They ran up to us and gave us hugs. Her husband took the pictures to a 24-hour photo center where they were developed and some enlarged. We said goodbye to Dave and the warden. Almost everyone who came to greet us, including my parents, were crying. Many of Angie's friends were there, most of whom I had never met, but Mary came over and gave us a hug. About 30 minutes later, Amy arrived with the pictures, enlarged some of them and spread them out on the table so that everyone could see them. Brad and Lisa came by the house to pick up their families. Brad was with his wife and 2 kids, and Lisa was with her husband and 3 kids. Approached Dave's photo and introduced the children to their grandfather, Amy. She explained that she had taken 4 sets of photos, and each family would be able to take one home after the reception. There were 1 for Brad and Lisa, 1 for Angie, and of course 1 for Amy. I wanted to tell you how amazing Angie looked in her wedding gown. If she had wings, she would have looked like an angel that God sent to me. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and she was my wife. I believe that most men feel that way about their Deb and Pat did not attend our wedding because it was Angie's day and I didn't want anything to ruin it. I watched her and her father walk down the aisle, watched her brother and sister make peace with their father, and watched our lips be together most of the night to the clinking of glasses. People I worked with told me that I was a very lucky man, and I didn't need to say that I knew I had the ring and intended to hold on to it forever. I will never forget that. Debbie and Pat got married last month, and I was happy to see that she is making a lot of effort to get her life together. My kids tell me that Pat is treating them well. When I inquired about Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob, they told me that they had moved to a different state. I was transferred to the day shift so that I could spend more time with the kids and be at home with Angie every night while she was pregnant with our child. 3 months after our wedding, Dave Keeler passed away, and the kids visited him every day. I look back on everything that happened, including the cheating wife going to prison, meeting the woman of my dreams, getting married, and starting over with the prospect of becoming a father once more. Not a day goes by that I don't thank God for what I have, thanking Him for giving Angie and me another chance at happiness. The month before his passing was sad, but we had time to tell him Angie's pregnancy. We told him it was going to be a boy and we would name him David Raymond. That made Dave smile. What would you have done in his place? Would you ever be able to forgive or trust after everything that happened? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. It really means a lot.